out the house, man. Holy cow, man. Have we gone through that before? That was something else. That was like the marathon of all marathons.
Yeah. The only thing I think would come close is like Brian Newbert, but it was like half that at most.
Yeah, well, and didn't he have his wife or something? He had a lot of these guys have a wife that helps them out. That's key, I think, to podcasting. When you don't know, what do they say? Shit from Shiola about your computer is you need a good wife that does.
Yeah,
or apparently the neighbor. Maybe the neighbor knows something. Anyway, now we can make our podcast in peace. Because we are officially recording, by the way.
Okay.
I hit record a little while ago.
I can see that. So you want to just do like try to knock an hour out and then...
Yeah, we could do an hour or however you feel, man. We could probably even do 45 minutes. You know how it goes. We'll get to 45 minutes and we'll be like, we're like a runner. You run a marathon and you're like, I'll go extra 5 miles.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to the last quarter, it's like, it's like in high school, we'd have to do like quarter mile repeats and you do 10 of them, but it's really just like doing 8 of them in your head because the first one you can do no problem and you feel fine and you can always bang out one more. So it's like you really, if you can gut through the 8 in the middle, the first one and the last one are easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh.
That was the lie I always told myself to make myself do it.
So what's the lie that you what's the lie that you tell yourself when we're doing podcasts?
We're doing podcasts.
Do you have one? Do you have a lie?
Yeah, you just got to get that like mental, like your arithmetic going where you say to yourself, okay, well, we usually try to go 90 minutes. And honestly, if we have a guest, it's like usually pretty entertaining unless we're really burning the midnight oil. And then it's still entertaining, but I can like feel it, physically. I'm like ready to go to sleep. But I tell myself if you can get to where there's like 15 minutes left, you're good. Because you can anyone can kind of get through it, for 15 minutes. But honestly, I don't have that thought too much about our podcasts. It's kind of like when you have horses, you have to ride and you don't necessarily feel like doing it. Like you don't feel super motivated that day. If you can just get to the point where you're like on the horse, at least for me, then I'm good. Because once I get on, it doesn't really matter how I feel. I'm going to be okay. So that's how I kind of look at the conversations is like, we need to get into something that I'm actually interested in. And then I can go from there. But it's the build up and kind of developing the rhythm and all that stuff. If you kind of start to peter out, that's where it's going to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like I've just done a podcast with our friend there for the past hour on computers, and I don't even know anything about computers. I'm just
an hour and 45 minutes. We were on the phone.
That was how long it took? Holy cow.
We started at 7:00.
Golly jeepers. Yeah, I mean, that'll redirect your energy for sure when you think something's going to go a certain way, and then you spend an hour and 45 doing something else, and then you still plug back in and try to do what you were going to do in the first place, but in a different way. You feel a little washed out. But
I feel like I've become immune to those tech conversations given my like former life. I was basically paid in what way? To have, because I was basically paid to have conversations with not so technically savvy people to be like, okay, now open your browser. Okay, now do this and do that. And I understand, not everyone's tech savvy and it's not a big deal, but you just have those things where if you're not in the room with them, there's just only so much you can control about what's going on their computer or their phone or whatever it is. And so when things don't work, you have to learn to just kind of let go, because it's how it happens sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
What else could we have done shy of being in the room with him?
Probably nothing. But that's interesting. And you should rate me on how I did, because I don't do that very often. And I probably would get more frustrated than you, because I'm telling him things that I would do if I was there. But if I was there, I wouldn't know any of the technical terms for what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. I would just be clicking on stuff and rebooting stuff and pulling it up and closing it down. And so trying to talk him through that, I'm sure I was using some terminology that is not typically heard, like around a computer, like just calling buttons all kind of names and like click on the little round yellow one. And like, just all kind of stuff. And like giving him directions like he's like an Appalachian trail hiker that I'm never going to see again. And it's imperative that he gets water in 2 miles at a little spring on the right, you know? So like giving him these directions that are super, like it feels coherent to me. And I feel like it is working for him because the arrow's getting there, but he's also a dog trainer and doesn't know how to right click and copy and paste. And so like, it doesn't really matter how I tell him how to do it. It's like, it's kind of a new experience for both of us. But it like that reminds me of like, you know, when you're working with somebody, or like, okay, you're trying to show somebody something on their horse, but like you've never thought about it that deeply. You've just been like doing it. And then you're like trying to show somebody and you're like, oh man. So you start calling it all kind of weird names and you're trying to explain what you do with your body. And then when they can't do it, you start getting frustrated and you get that feeling like if I could get inside of your skin, like I'd start throwing levers and pulling switches and hitting buttons and I'd be trying stuff till it worked. But it's really hard to like run someone else's hands and mind like a puppet when you like you're not even sure how to do the job in the first place and you don't even know the terminology. That's how I felt for the past hour and 45.
Yeah. Well, you did good. I mean, the main thing is, like I said, you have to be patient, and all the credit in the world to him too, because I don't know how he didn't get frustrated and quit on us like an hour ago. Like that, that was the most amazing part to me. Because like you said, you have people who maybe you're trying to help them with their horse, and it's almost like there's an ability that people have to varying degrees where they can take that like audio input and then apply it into their body. So, you know, you might tell one person left leg back and they do it like that. And then other people, you say left leg back and they're like, well, left. Okay, which side is that? That. All right, my leg. Okay, this one, this part of my body. Okay, forward or back. You know what I mean? And so they like have to like process all of that. And some people are just like, okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. And honestly, it's a talent in its own, but it doesn't necessarily translate long term into how well those people ride. It's almost like a whole nother skill of just like how well can you take instruction and then put it into like tactile form that quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it literally has left me like kind of brain dead. I feel like
I can see that.
Like seriously, I put a lot of work into that because like you just said, like it's not easy. And so I'm sitting there like exploring every possibility and you're like willing it to happen. I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people that like when I want something to happen and I feel like I can see it in my mind how it could work. And then I start willing it to happen and then I start believing it's going to happen. And it's when like something like that happens like tonight, Like, to me, that's rare. I'm like, what the heck? Like, normally it's pretty hopeless, but it works. And so when you got to throw in the towel, that hurts. You're like, you hate to throw in the towel. But man, I don't know much about training dogs, but if anything, it looks like it's instilled a lot of patience in that man.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, and probably working with horses does that to people too. But I just know a lot of people who would be like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. Your all's deal sucks. Call me back. Or actually, you know what? I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Lose my number. Yeah. You get like 30 minutes into them.
Yeah.
And trying to get them set up. Lose my number. We don't need to do this. This is way too much effort for people I barely know.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
But I mean, some of those stock dogs, man, I don't have a lot of stock dog experience, but I know there's some hard-headed SOBs out there when it comes to the dogs, like the herding dogs. So I imagine you probably would have to have some patience if you're going to get anything done as a dog trainer.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you are, pause for a moment and head on over to Spotify or Apple. There you can leave us a review and you can follow the podcast. These actions help us by pushing the podcast out to new audiences who have not found us yet. And that in turn allows us to keep on doing what we do best, bringing you guys new, fresh, exciting content and interviews week by week. Thank you, guys.
But like you said, probably like horses, but I don't know. A lot of times dogs, to me, and this would be a perfect conversation for him if we had him on the podcast right now, and we'll get him on there sooner rather than later. But it almost seems like especially young dogs compared to young horses, young dogs seem to be able to cook up their own agenda a lot quicker than young horses can. And I don't know if it's like a predator versus prey type thing, but especially if it's just like a colt and no one's messed with it a bunch, they're pretty willing to like go with the flow things, where you get like a however old border collie that you're ready to start training. A lot of times that thing's like, it's just like ready to go. It's ready to do something, and it's going to do something regardless if you give it direction or not, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never thought about that to that extent, but you're right. Like little dogs, even little cats, man, they start wandering around and and they're playing with stuff and like going and doing things. Like I have that little cat, and I guess he's a little over 3 months now, and he's getting big really fast. And he wanders around, and he's wandered off for about a day so far. But he's really friendly, like way too friendly. Like I don't know if I even told you about this, but one day, this is pretty funny. So I'm saddling up my horse, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on what's going on in the arena, and just like periodically. And all of a sudden I hear, like that classic sound. You hear a horse kind of snort, and then you hear fast movement, and you hear the dust landing, and then you hear a thud from a person, and then you hear like panels get hit, and there's like a trail of sounds, and it's not good.
Yeah.
And so, and I look over there, and Shooter is running around the arena with no rider, and there's a little shed and a pole, so I can't see behind it. But then I see Jackson get up and kind of walk out a little ways over here. So it's obvious that rider Jackson and horse Shooter have been separated, and they're going in opposite directions. And Shooter's pretty calm, so I'm like, I just call over. I'm like, hey, you all right? He's like, yeah. So I finish what I'm doing, and then I start heading to the arena in a little while. And I just said, hey, what happened, man? He's like, oh, I was roping the roping dummy, and your cat hopped up on the roping dummy, and then he tried to jump up on the horse with me, but he landed on Shooter's head. So my cat jumps up and grabs Shooter by the head like that, like right on his forehead. from the sounds of it. Well, Jackson's trying to rope the roping dummy. And then, Shooter just lost it. It's like a little mini mountain lion grabbing you by the head. And that was and it wasn't like a big buck, but it was enough. He whirled around and
it was a little
rider
scoop.
Was dismounted. Isn't that hilarious?
Probably thinking about his roping more than sitting on his stationary horse.
That's kind of, and later I was like, man, all right, I'm going to work on my cat a little bit, but I'm pretty sure a cat wouldn't have tried to jump onto my horse. Or it might have tried, but I wouldn't have just been sitting there like a bump on log.
Yeah, was that so the cat was on the roping dummy?
Yeah.
See, I feel like, and I don't mind cats, but I am no cat
You'd have
lover.
To see that coming though, right? If the cat hops up on the dummy and starts walking towards you, well, you're trying to rope it.
I just feel like that cat would have a Honda between the eyes way before it left that roping dummy. Hey, like I would deter that line of thinking pretty early. I'd like to think. I don't know. I've never had that happen.
Yeah.
But
hey, look, that little cat, I'm trying to raise him well and I love him, but part of the way I've raised him well is he's come in contact with the right end of my flag a couple of times now. And because I'm trying to teach him the same thing. Like I was in the round corral one day and I've got a colt roped by a hind foot and it's going around and I'm letting it carry the rope before I was going to start stopping it by a hind foot. And this colt's kind of trotting pretty fast. And you know how your rope will go around and you're letting it kind of bounce on the ground? Just have it's got a little slack in it. Mm-hmm. And he's between me and the colt. And every time the rope comes around, he like grabs the rope, but it's going way too fast. So he gets drug a little ways and like gets flopped over and comes up and like shakes his head off. And then he like waits for it to come again. I couldn't believe it. Like most any animal would get out of there. They're not going to get rim fired on purpose. And he's out there getting rim fired on purpose. And like, Bill will be riding around. He'll chase his horses. So it's kind of a thing. You've got to establish dominance with him early on. And he's learning, but same thing. He's just a little cat. And he's got all these things to do. And then at one point when he first started wandering, Bill's got a new little filly. And we had her on stall rest for a little while. And she's a sweet little horse. And like he would go over there and sit next to her pile of hay and just watch her eat. And he'd look at her, get a bite, and then she'd pick her head up and he'd look up at her and watch her chew. Then he'd put his head back down and watch her eat. And he would do that for 30 or 40 minutes at a time, just sitting there. And he'd just track her up and track her down. And I don't know what's going on in that cat's head. I don't. And it's just the weirdest thing. And I've never seen a cat that friendly. And it's kind of a menace, like when he got Jackson bucked off. But
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see if anything changes. I have to update everybody because I'm going to take him in and get him neutered next week. So,
oh yeah,
that's kind of the thing to do. Apparently, I was kind of like going to leave him for a while, and then he's just starting to spray a little bit, and just I think that's part of his behavior. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, cats, man, they're the great conflict about being a cat is you're literally nature's perfect killing machine, but also you weigh 8 pounds.
Yeah.
So that's what he's going through, because he's watching this horse and he's like, I just know, like if I was like 80 pounds instead of 8 pounds, I would run this place. And so he's just like, he's coming to grips with that.
Yeah. Gosh, you're right, man. He's a complete athlete too. And he'll sit in he'll sit in your lap and you like pet him with your hand and he'll like throw his paw over your hand. And he's being nice, but it's like he's throwing his paw over your hand like, hey, I got paws too. And I got these claws, and he'll kind of stick them out. And yeah, it's like you said. It's like he's sitting there thinking like, if I was 80 pounds,
yeah,
I'd be cuddly, huh? Like, yeah. And then maybe I'd have a snack out of you when I was done. Like, he's such a little athlete. Mm-hmm. And just the way he does everything he does. But it's fun to watch him grow up. But yeah, the neutering thing, like, I don't know. I think I'm going to get it done. But I was arguing with a few people at first about it because I got to thinking about it. It's like, well, why do you have to neuter him? It's like he was born that way. And I get that way sometimes, whether it's like cow vaccines or, I don't know, giving your horse like ulcer medication or like some of this stuff where you're like, man, do we really need to give that to them? It's typically after I've listened to like some documentary about, food processing or, Big Brother in the ag industry or pharmaceuticals or whatever. So I start thinking about it. I'm like, well, what? Everyone and their uncle goes and marches, what do you say? They step in line, or there's a saying for that, but everybody takes their cat when he's however old, goes and gets him neutered.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe I won't do that. I'm just going to leave him. And, but no, I'm getting in mine. We're getting him neutered.
I could not disagree with that line of thinking more. I am very pro, like, neuter as many cats as possible. I'm actually, I'm a stronger advocate of other population control methods, but neutering is like a good, like, common ground for for having less cats around.
Yeah, no, I'm with you too on the population control, but I think it's weird, man. Like when I was a kid, we knew a farrier, and I don't want to get graphic or anything, but like they always had kittens around the barn, and they would have just the weirdest ways to deal with the cat population, and I don't know what. Do you know what I mean? Like something about when people are trying to get rid of kittens, it's pretty weird. Like it's pretty easy to get rid of a lot of animals. And somehow, like maybe because kittens are small, or it might be because people don't want to like face death. So like they'll put kittens in a bag and put them up to a muffler. I mean, I'm not a kitten and I've never been killed by a muffler pipe. So maybe it's a really good way to go. I don't think it's a very good way to go. Gosh, it's like I think people are trying to avoid like feeling responsible for the death of an animal up close. So they farm it out to a stupid trash bag in their car's exhaust pipe, but they're still responsible. Like they set that up and it was worse. You know what I mean? People do that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like you farm something out. So like you don't have to be there for it and you're not like as responsible, but it's a way worse scenario in the end for the thing that you're trying to not be cruel to. And I remember that as a kid about kittens, just different farms and farriers, and nothing against farriers, but just that's who they happen to be. And, or farmers, nothing against farmers either, but that's who happen to be killing kittens. And, I was just like, man, that's weird. Heck, we would slaughter, we would harvest chickens every year. And we didn't have any problem, harvesting chickens, and it was pretty humane. Mm-hmm. But somehow the kittens, they just did not get the good end of the stick. I tell you what.
Well, it's way easier to anthropomorphize a kitten than it is a bird. Plus, the other thing too, there's a little bit of this with me. Like, I don't mind. Like it's deer season here. I don't mind shooting deer. I like hunting deer when I have the time. And I'm not anti-bear hunting by any means. I think, and especially in Virginia, people need to hunt bears to control the population. But I just think I would feel different about a bear than I would a deer. It's almost like I know the deer is like an animal that's supposed to be killed and eaten, but there's something about, maybe it's the fact that they're predators and, black bears are omnivores, but it's just like one step closer to like being your dog or being a human, Like I feel like I empathize more with a black bear than I do a deer. And I feel like I empathize more with a kitten than I do a chicken. And I'm not saying it's right. I agree with your line of thinking, but there is something kind of inherently built in, to me at least. And I think a lot of other people feel that way too.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't take that away at all. I think you're right. I feel that way a little bit about raccoons. Like when I was a kid, we had a raccoon that tore up the chicken house, and then I shot a raccoon, and it was easy to do because you saw you see the raccoon as a kid, the little bandit faced animal, and he's cute and stuff. But then when he tore up the chicken house, it was like, we're going to get you, you little varmint. And so we got him, and it didn't seem like a big deal. But like now, I haven't seen raccoon carnage in a long time, but I've just seen raccoons like running around, being cute.
Yeah.
I would feel bad shooting a raccoon if I didn't have a really good reason to do it.
Hey, On the Move listener. Have you been following us on social media? Have you been watching the video format of the podcasts? If so, you've probably noticed by now that we have On the Move merch. I'm wearing one of our hats right now. The first order of hats we did flew off the shelves, and we've only got a handful left in each style. But we're doing another order, and if you want to pre-order your On the Move hat today, go to www.onthemovepodcast.com. There you'll find our Shopify store with hats, mugs, stickers, and other merch. Get it just in time for the holiday season and let everyone know that you're on the move. Sure.
And that's what like these turkey hunters we'll talk about. We're going to go out and we're going to annihilate the raccoons. And I'm always like, yeah, man, I don't really want to hear about that, because again, like I would rather see turkeys get shot, kind of like the chicken and the kitten. Like to me, turkeys aren't very personable. They look kind of dumb. They're like beautiful, but their little head where the little command center's at just looks like it needs to be shot. Like if the turkey didn't have a head, it would probably be a lot harder to shoot. But that little head, it's almost like it's running around being like, I'm so ugly, you need to take me out of the gene pool. But the little raccoon, it's like, man, I don't see why you'd need to kill one. But if it ravaged something or, gosh, maybe tore up I don't think they would. I wonder, I don't know how big the game is before the raccoons stop chewing on them. I'm sure some rabid podcast listener will leave a comment about that. They probably know. But I would think a raccoon doesn't kill anything too big. But like, for instance, when my rage gets up is when they're animals that I love, like my horses or like even that cat. I like him now. If something killed a horse that I owned or killed my cat, like I would want vengeance on that animal. Like I've thought about that recently.
Yeah.
Because actually the cat, the first time he wandered off, I was trying to figure out what happened to him. And I started thinking about it. And Valentino, you know how he is. He's kind of skulky about cats. He'll go after him and chase him. And I couldn't shake it off. And I was like, man, if that dog ate my cat or just killed my cat, if I find him like mutilated somewhere, I mean, it's not my dog, but that's going to be the last straw. That dog is going to come to justice.
Yeah.
But he was all right.
You know where you would like what they do in terms of the non-neutering stuff? Buck was actually telling me this. Apparently in Spain, they don't cut any of their horses. They don't neuter any of their cats and dogs. And apparently it's the same. Someone else told me it was the same way in Italy too. They keep everything, all their like livestock intact and all their pets too intact, which blows my mind, but somehow life goes on over there.
See, that's the exact train of thought I was talking about, man. Because in Italy, they don't use GMOs either. So what got me thinking about this, and I'm not going to go way down the rabbit hole, and I don't know enough about it anyway, but I'm trying to learn more. Like, you were talking about getting into the pasture stuff recently. So I listened to a podcast recently with that guy, Will Harris, and his daughter, Jeannie, I think, and they own White Oak Pastures here in Georgia. My fiance used to work there for a little while. And but I think they're getting kind of famous. You hear about them. Everybody's because they're a teeny little farm. It's just that they're one of the early regenerative farms. I think they were the first supplier of grass-fed beef to Whole Foods back in like 2001, something like that. But anyway, so Will Harris, it's taken about 20, let's say 25 years to quit being a traditional commercial cowman and then turn his farm into a regenerative farm where first they quit giving shots and they started pasture rotating cattle. Then they brought in poultry and pigs and all these other things, and they've created this ecosystem. And he said, one of the biggest things that have changed in my life is I remember being a commercial cowman, and I would spend my days going out looking for things to kill, whether I was looking for disease in the animals, looking for funguses on the ground, looking for weeds, looking for varmints, just anything that was out of place. I was looking to kill something. He's like, I had Roundup in my pickup all the time. I had my sprays. I had my antibiotics. I had all these things. All I had was weapons to kill living organisms that were disrupting my life and my commercial operation. He goes, today, my entire focus is keeping things alive. I want the microbiome in my cows to be healthy. I want the funguses to grow where they're supposed to. I want the weeds and the natural grasses to grow. I want a bald eagle to catch a chicken every now and then. And I've got good guard dogs that keep the percentage on my side. And man, that got me thinking, because that's a really cool way of life. And I know everyone talks about that, and I don't know how scalable that is for everybody, but it made me think about my cat. I was like, man, everybody just neuters their cat. They don't even think about it. In fact, I had like ladies telling me like, oh, you got him neutered yet? You got to neuter him. You need to do that right now. And me, I can get a little rub sideways. And I'm like, guys, I'm the freaking guy that owns horses and like takes care of cows for a living. Like, I'm the animal guy. You live in the city, and granted, you've had 15 cats probably, but you're like coming to me like, all right, you got to neuter your cat now. You got to neuter your cat. I'm like, do I have to neuter my cat or don't I? Because you're just saying that because that's what you did, and that's what someone told you to do. And maybe neutering the cat's the right thing to do, but I feel like there's so many decisions like that are made just because everyone does it. And with the farming, that really stood out to me when Will said, I used to kill everything, and now I'm trying to keep everything alive. And gosh, I mean, that's what we're trying to do with our horses and a lot of things. It just makes sense. Like, that way of life to me makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's always a balance there, because you're right. It's so easy with so many things, whether it's horsemanship or animal husbandry or just how you take care of yourself. There's so many things that have become almost institutionalized. So you have to be careful that you're not just becoming a part of the institution. But on the same turn of the coin, sometimes the institution's right, And I think the biggest thing you have to do is say, this is how I look at horsemanship. And I feel like I kind of had to do it because I started pursuing the kind of style we pursue, but I wasn't surrounded by a lot of other people doing it. So in the beginning, I was bad, and I wasn't surrounded by a lot of people that were good. And so I had to say, okay, I'm going to do this. And I realize the other horse people around me might look at me funny. And so I'm going to, not that I have to prove it to them, but I'm going to have to prove to myself that there's a justification for everything that I'm doing. I need to be able to articulate, even if it's just be able to articulate to myself, why am I doing this? So for example, the neutering the cat thing. If I owned a cat, I would have it neutered because I live in an area where there are 10 million cats. Like, there are so many cats around here, and we see them all the time. People like drive them to the edge of our property and just dump out a whole litter of cats, and there's 3 or 4 cats in my barn right now that ended up there just by people dropping them off, and then they ran to the barn, and they live in the back with the straw bales or whatever, and it doesn't bother me too much because they're pretty good pest control and they're not hurting anything, and they're not jumping on my horse when I'm trying to rope the dummy or anything like that. But I've just seen what happens when people just have litter after litter after litter and they don't do anything to kind of correct that. But I totally get what you're saying, where, okay, am I supposed to do this just because someone told me to do this and that's what they said? Or should I look into why I actually need to do this? And I mean, ultimately, it's your decision, and you live in a different place, so it might be a different deal for you. But that's what I've found is I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with going with the grain, going with common knowledge, but you need to have flushed out why you're doing that. You can't do it just for the sake of everyone else is doing it. That's crappy reasoning. But at the same time, you can't be such a contrarian that you say, well, I'm just not going to do what everyone else does because all these people are sheep. It's like, well, yeah, but sometimes sheep are right. And the sheep might not know why they're right, but maybe you can know why they're right, and then you go with the sheep in this instance. So that's what I've found. And I think all that stems from, in the beginning, I just wanted to be, I've always been like that. I've always been a contrarian, just wanted to do things different for the sake of being different. And a lot of times it really worked out, but then other times being different for the sake of being different can be to your own detriment because you're discounting the knowledge that is out there in some of those institutions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just finding a good balance of those things. And
yeah, but you just need to have a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
like I was talking to someone about that tonight, and it was about cattle vaccinations, and we both agreed, to some extent, like, yeah, maybe all that stuff isn't, I don't know, maybe all that stuff isn't great for our cows, but that's also the game. Like, that's the rules and the regulations, and there's probably some good in there. And then maybe there is some stuff that's linked to, like the farm companies that, I mean, that's like revenue. They're used to that. I mean, think about it. Every year, let's just take the cow business, for instance, right? Like all the stuff that we give our cows every year, especially if you're in like a program, like that's a lot of money. So like if they said, well, you don't really need that one, and then a bunch of farmers are like, yeah, all right, let's not do that one. I mean, that's like a whole bunch of revenue. So like I'm sure there's definitely somewhat money motivated to tell us what we're supposed to give our cows. But then there's also some really good things in there that probably are keeping cows alive, especially like the way we keep them and we have our structured pattern. So that's what we were talking about. Like, yeah, okay, maybe not all that stuff's great, but it's also the game. It's the system we're plugged into now. And if you're going to sell cows in that market, you better have all that stuff in order, or you got to go find a different market. And I guess it is what it is, but that's the thing. Is like, I don't know. I think about stuff like that a lot. Like, yeah, okay, maybe sometimes it's the right thing to do to stay in that clause, but is it the right thing ethically, or is it the right thing for your cows, or would you put that in your own body? I don't know. I like thinking about stuff like that. And shoot,
yeah,
the cat sure got me thinking there for a minute.
Yeah,
I had my hackles were up about getting neutered.
Yeah. I can't imagine though. Wouldn't it be wild if no one cut their horses here?
I don't think that would be a good thing. Just what would that do? Like, what would that do? Like, I don't know. What would that look like? Do you have a picture in your mind?
the picture in my mind, I don't know. One of two dystopian realities. One's a lot more dystopian than the other. My first dystopian reality, if no one cut their colts in the United States, is not a lot of people would survive owning horses, and and owning a horse would be a much more kind of niche, elitist type thing, I guess you could say. My other reality, which is maybe the more optimistic side, is it would like force everyone on average to become a lot handier with their horses.
Have you ever put the first ride on a colt in a muddy arena? Or maybe you've tried preg checking a group of cows in a thunderstorm. Maybe you're not even the animal type, but we've all crawled under our pickup truck to change the oil in a parking lot. And eventually we had to head in the store and buy a cheap tarp in that vain attempt to keep the water off our sacred project. Well, that'll work for so long. And when you're at home, it just gets older and older. What you need is a roof, and you need a quality structure, and one made of good American steel, built to last a lifetime. Well, that's something worthwhile investing in. Heck, you might even decide to make a barn dominium. People are doing that these days. So if you've been working on your farm or ranch for a while, or you're just getting started on a place and you've been wanting to build and the price has been holding you back, or you couldn't find a good manufacturer to work with, now is the time to look into that steel building you've been wanting to build. And the folks you need to look into are Metal Material Direct. They also offer a revolutionary octagon steel fencing system. This fencing system can be used for arena fences, corrals, working pens, as well as a heavy-duty fence that can be dressed up or down, depending on if it's for your lawn or used as a commercial fence around your farm or business. They use a revolutionary clip design, which allows those of you who don't weld to put this stuff together. Be perfect for you. Head over to www.metalmdi.com/onthemove, and there you'll find their 3D configurator. It allows you to plug in your dimensions and specifications for that building you want to build and see it as a finished project. So in conclusion, head on over to www.metalmdi.com/onthemove and get a custom quote for your new steel building, garage, shop, barn dominium, or fencing system. And be sure and let them know the guys at On the Move sent you.
So I don't know, man. It's tough because I've started some studs for people, and they're really not that much different. But the biggest thing that seems like it ruins them, and I don't have a ton of experience, but I have heard Buck say this too, and I think he's right from what I've seen people do. I think if you breed them too early and you don't get them kind of on the payroll in terms of having them be like a using horse that would be up to the standard of any other, 5-year-old colt that you have, like a good snaffle bit horse, right? That you've been riding for a couple years. If you don't get them up to that quality, if you put a couple months in them and then breed them, what I've seen is all that work just goes right out the window because they don't have enough discipline in them to overcome the stuff they're more concerned about now. And I'm no expert, but the handful of studs I've started, that's the advice I've given to everybody because it's the advice I've heard Buck tell people. And I've seen people heed that advice, and I've seen people just go to breeding the stud, and every time they went to breeding the stud, it did not work out. They're talking about cutting him 3-4 years down the road because of how bad he is now. And I know for a fact, when I gave him back, they were pretty happy with how he was going. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, how do you think it works out for him in Spain? Because they do that, and I think most of those bullfighting horses are studs. And I know a lot of the like international jumpers and stuff, they ride studs, and their horses don't seem to be too crazy unruly, but you never know what's happening behind the woodshed to get them to act right either. So who knows?
Yeah, they might have a little something. But was he saying that the whole country does that, or just like those guys that he was riding with and those particular horses?
No, I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's the whole country, because like I said, they don't cut any of their dogs either. Like they don't neuter any dogs. I think it has something to do with the Latin kind of vibrato, where it's like, you know, you're taking from you're taking part of the soul from the animal.
Yeah.
Because like I said, they kind of have the same thing in Italy. So that kind of whole Latin Mediterranean culture, it's probably just how they feel about the whole deal. And
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they've been getting along this fine, this far, okay. So if that's what they do, but yeah, I mean that was at least the story Buck told me, was they would sit there and they'd have like 30 studs lined up on the rail, and they were all just standing like soldiers on that rail. And you know, can you imagine over here if people tied 30 studs up together?
Man.
How that would work out?
Yeah. Well, at least if they did it right now, at least. Because we're so used to the backyard gelding, just this thing that maybe has a little attitude or something, but it's just so gentle. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Can you imagine how many more kind of junker horses there would be? Because I feel like they probably have less of that in Spain. Like the person who has 2 or 3 horses in the backyard. I feel like that's more common over here. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, imagine if half of all the 2 or 3 backyard horses you drive by were studs, and you know, could hop the fence and cover Sally's mare back there without you knowing about it. And
we'd have a lot more backyard horses.
Oh yeah,
all the time.
Yeah,
man, I wonder if they do that in South America too. Do you ever see those videos? I always assume it's South America, but like these guys riding horses that'll blow up, or they swing on and the thing bucks around, and it looks like a guy riding a dolphin almost. Like it's crazy
because the horses always rear. Like they rear and buck at the same time.
Like, little spindly horses. And they've got these goat skins and stuff wrapped around them, and they're holding on for dear life. And it's just the wildest stuff.
Yeah. Well, and give those guys credit, because most of those videos, I mean, they are hell bent for, like, they will let the horse crash before they let go of that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll see them ride through a fence, or ride through a swamp, or ride under a cow and it comes back up. And I bet a lot of those horses are studs or mares, you know, but I bet they don't cut a lot of horses too.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. That I'd love to go down to Argentina and see the whole deal down there, because it just, every time I see any sort of Argentine ranch, it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be beautiful down there.
Yeah. It almost looks like a little bit warmer Montana. That's what it seems like when you look at it on Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, like that would be cool to visit, and parts of South Africa too. Or I don't know if it's South Africa, but have you seen some of those ranches in Africa?
Yeah.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you remember when we talked to Bruce?
Yeah.
And he was telling us about his ranch. Like, I follow him on Instagram, man, and he's got some wild stuff on his Instagram. Them just like riding out with the cattle and stuff, and it's like the African safari, and then they're just like moving this big mob of cattle through there, and Yeah, it's cool. I can't believe those guys don't do more stuff horseback, like he was saying, because that seems like it would be a cool place to kind of have that culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be a good that'd be a good place for it.
Yeah. Bunch of grass, flat land.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if they have so polo cross was kind of their sport down there, right?
For those guys at least, yeah.
Wonder if they have like any kind of some kind of roping culture, because that's one of the things about Buck going to Europe was at least that group of Spaniards didn't rope anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I highly doubt it in South Africa because there's no like Spanish or Latin influence there at all, really.
What do the Mongols do? They don't rope? They do something, all right? Or do they even herd? Maybe they're just hunter gatherers.
No, they herd.
What do they herd?
Like horses and goat, dude. Like everything you can herd. What do you mean? They got like cattle and horses and goats.
With a falcon they got those on their wrist.
No, there's the guys. I bet I could do a screen share. How does our screen share work on YouTube? Because, dude, those Mongolian guys.
Yeah, let's watch some Mongolian guys.
They have like a really long stick with like a loop. It's basically like a snare at the end of the stick. And they like run up so that it's like they got a javelin on their horse and there's a rope on the end of the javelin.
Oh, yeah, I want to see this.
They get it like around the other horse's neck and then they pull it tight and then they just hold on to that stick for all they're worth. Usually get a couple of their buddies to hold on to it with them. And then it's
kind of like one of those dog catcher sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. Yeah, the Mongolians, they were the original dog catchers. Yeah, that's what's cool, man. That would be fun to do a tour and just tour around and see all the different ways people catch livestock off the back of a horse. Like years ago, like 3 years ago, maybe, I visited my sister in New York. We went to the Smithsonian there in New York City. And that was the most fascinating part to me, was walking around and seeing all the different, the horses of every culture.
Yeah.
I don't think I can read those subtitles.
All right, here we go. You see the wild? Dude, these things are little too.
I bet those are some stout little ponies, though.
Oh, dude, you could not kill those things with an atomic bomb, I'm sure.
That guy looks all dressed up. I like that.
Yeah, he's really playing the part, and he looks very not Mongolian.
It makes you wonder, like, okay, maybe he's just like a tour guide, but I bet they have some Hanyakers that like dress up in all the stuff, and the real guys are like, yeah, he's just a fake one.
Oh, yeah.
They do.
Like this guy's like the equivalent of, he's got his like flat hat and his like really nice chinks and maybe even put wax in his mustache for the weekend and then just like could not ride out of a paper bag.
Yeah. Okay. He's like the domesur of the vaquero. I think I made that first word up, but it sounded cool, but you know what I mean? He's like the ambassador for vaqueros, but he's the ambassador for Mongolian horsemanship.
Okay. See their sticks here?
Oh man. So are they going to go on foot?
No, I think they're going to get on their horse. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
They're getting on their horse. Okay.
Oh, this is good.
Dude, these are a lot longer. So for anyone not... Oh, see, him and his buddies, they got this thing tied down now. Yeah, so for anyone who can't watch the video of the podcast, they got this
follow
big
us on
group.
YouTube and watch the video. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, they got like a remuda, like 200 horses, and these guys are riding in with like what looks like 30-foot long fishing poles, and they got ropes at the end of them, and they just kind of snare a horse. Oh, and then they get tight, and then and they don't have a horn or anything, so they just got to hold on to that sucker. Oh, he got away!
Wow,
he didn't pull his slack.
Guy. That looked like a little donkey almost.
Yeah.
Okay, I would go travel and do this with these guys.
Yeah. There you go. See, that one seemed kind of broke. That one didn't drag him all over the place. That was more like, when they're like at the sixes and they're like roping their horses in the morning.
Yeah.
Like the horses act like they've never seen a human, and then you get the rope on them and they're like, all right, you got me.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been roping this. Hey, they might rope that herd all the time. I mean, they got enough photographers
for the tourists. They do it every Saturday morning for all the white tourists that come.
That's like their little get-together.
Dressed like this guy.
This is the Mongolian Pro-Am. Hey, dude, we I think On the Move on the Road, episode number 1, pole catching horses in Mongolia.
Oh, yeah.
Dan and Joe.
I would 100% do that.
That looks like fun. I bet a Mongolian bar fight is I bet that would knock you out.
Yeah. I don't even think they have bars, man. I think they just...
I bet they have fights, though.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of like MMA guys come out of Mongolia.
Yeah.
Let's see this guy, Mongolian horseman in action. This is like great podcasting too, right? Just
yeah, this is I think we found the sweet spot.
Watch videos that no one else can see but you and me.
Yeah.
Dude, these guys
they'll live vicariously through our
They do not. Oh. Did you see that?
No, I missed it. Can you
Okay, I'm going to play that back.
Or if not, no worries. I'll act like I saw it, though.
Wait.
But it freeze clipped on me.
Oh.
Or, sorry, the clip froze.
So they got a hold of him, and, I mean, they...
Oh, yeah.
They endoed this horse. But they got him now.
See, their poles look kind of flexible.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's some kind of like bamboo or cane or... Oh, man, his rope slipped.
I hope it's not fiberglass.
I doubt it. Okay, so he's going to go get the freaking thing.
Oh, look!
I'm telling you, man,
tailing that sucker down.
So what do you think? Yeah, this looks more like a branding than a cult starting.
I know, but like, imagine having a fight with that guy. He is holding a horse. Well, and that's probably a 13-hand pony. I mean, that's a big pony for tailing it down, maining it down.
He's got it.
Main.
Golly! Oh,
he's gonna yank it over. He just tripped it, and he got a man. That's fun.
That was bad to the bone, dude.
Okay, like I admire that guy. Whoever
that man is fearless. That man is fearless.
My hero. Like I've got a horse to ride tomorrow that I haven't wanted to get on yet. I'm gonna get on it now. Like that note I just told you I wrote myself. I'm gonna have to say like, don't be a little wuss. Think about your Mongolian guy.
Oh my gosh,
dude, that was amazing. You got to see another one.
Yeah,
of those. That's like a Mongolian cult starting. All right, so like in Sheridan next June, you're like, hey Buck, we want to do ours a little different. Can you just rope this thing, and then I'm gonna run down the rope and just flip it over and get on it, and then just throw me the coils. We're going.
Well, you gotta. He ear twitched it first. You notice how he ear twitched it?
Yeah.
And then he got his leg like in front of the. He got his leg like in front of its front legs, and then when he let go of the ear twitch, it tried to run forward and he tripped it. And when it was on the ground, he hopped on it.
Yeah. That was. You can tell that guy's done that a couple of times.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, man. Yeah, it looks more like a branding than it does a cult starting, because they literally just mug them to the ground and hop on them.
Yeah.
And they're doing this.
Is that all they heard?
Snow on the ground.
Yeah, is that all they heard, though? Is that all they heard, those horses?
No, I think they have like
reindeer.
Cattle. I think they run cattle. I'm pretty sure. I know Mongolian beef's a thing you can get at a restaurant, so.
Yeah. Wow, that's so pretty. That looks like Wyoming.
Yeah, it does look like Wyoming.
Oh, man. Okay, so if the Mongol army was coming towards you, do you think those guys had to been twice as handy as that guy that just rode that horse? Like, imagine going to war against that guy. Like, I'm pretty brave. I don't think bravery would get you through that, though. Like, you could be as brave as you wanted to be.
No.
That guy just is going to totally outdo you.
In a setting like this, in the open plains, like there's no way you beat them, I don't think.
So like that, okay, and I know this is Mongolia, not the West, but like in that book, you've probably read it, right? That one, Empire of the Summer Moon, or any of these stories about the Comanches, and they say they were so superior because of their horsemanship and the fact, like, as a horse nation, watching that guy do that with that horse, that totally makes sense. Like, if you had a nation of people that could do that and shoot a bow and arrow accurately and just come out of the woodwork, just right onto your camp or your wagon train or your troop of soldiers. I mean, that's no wonder they feared them so much.
Dude, think about how handy it is if in a world where horses are the main mode of transportation and some like Comanche can come steal your horse and be way handier on your horse than you'd ever be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just such a, I can't even think of an equivalent. It's almost like a video game power up where it's like, if you drive the car, it handles like this. And if I drive the car, it handles twice as well, and there's just like, that's hard to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be kind of like if you had like a bow and arrow and you didn't know how to shoot it, and Robin Hood broke in your house and you tried to shoot him and then he took your bow from you. It'd be kind of up the creek. But yeah, that guy was so fluid. What are these people doing?
I'm telling you, man, that's what you gotta do tomorrow. You roll into Sheridan and be like, Buck, I'm telling you, we can make this cold starting like 45 minutes tops.
Yeah.
I just need like 30 foot of bamboo and an old team roping rope.
Okay, but what's interesting to me is that they can start. I just think if I tried to start a colt like that, it would have some braces that I would never get rid of. Now, granted, these guys might have some serious braces in their horses. Yeah. They are like gallivanting all over the place and getting it done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, and you watch the horses go around. I mean, they're not what we would consider in classical form whatsoever.
Not at all.
I mean, they're yee-hawing and their heads are going everywhere. But I think those guys, they just think they're like, they're out there doing a job, and as long as the feet get to where the feet need to be, you got 200 other horses out back. Who cares what they look like?
Yeah.
So it just has to be such a completely different perspective, because I've actually thought about that too, where, kind of the horsemanship we practice, it stems from the Spanish and it came from the Moors. And there's just this whole idea of kind of classical horsemanship, right? That it's all kind of derived from. And, these people have been out here working with horses for just as long as the Spanish, if not more, right? So what was so different that the Spanish horses looked so different than these guys, where, again, they're clearly good at what they do, but they don't really like turn it into art the same way. Oh, this guy's using a rope.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
This is like the horse whisperer. Look at that. The way he walked up there. That horse has never seen a human before. First time he's ever been pet. Oh, he must be catching his horse out of the remuda.
That's what I think he's doing.
That thing looks like he's been led a couple times.
Yep. Dude, I mean, these are little fire plugs, aren't they? Like, I mean, look how thick all the legs on these horses are.
Yeah.
Compared to the size of the horse.
Yeah. Oh, man, I would go ride one of those. That'd be fun. It'd be fun to haul a saddle out there, though. I mean, I would try some local stuff, but it'd be fun to break flag out on one of those things and chuck a saddle on it. And there's plenty of room. It looks like you could buck around quite a ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how well these guys would respond to, like, hold on, let me flag him for a minute before we go do anything, boys.
Yeah. But so that's one of the things, like that was one of the deterrents to me about even wanting to be in the cowboy world because, and I think I've talked about this before, but like early on, you'd watch a movie like Hondo with John Wayne where he's like bucking that horse out, or like Bonanza, they'd be starting colts, or just like any movie I ever saw as a kid, they would buck these horses out. And like, it looked really cool. It looked really awesome. I was like, hey, when I grow up, I want to work with horses and I'm going to do that. But then you like get bucked a few times and you realize how hard that hurts. And it's not that, it's not like you're like afraid of getting hurt. I was probably a little afraid of getting hurt, but it's that you're going to get beat up. And it's like no different than like MMA. Like if you were going to do MMA, you got to either really love it or get paid a lot. But no one's going to just keep getting beat up in a cage and not get paid. And you see that now. Like we have some of the most elite fighters of all time, but they're also getting paid more than ever before. And I bet if they weren't getting paid very much, we would have a lot of lunatics in the cage. And a lot of those guys that are getting paid a lot and fighting right now, they probably wouldn't fight. They'd probably do something else and make a lot of money at that. So it's like those Mongolian guys, or even like the image of like bucking your horse out. Like maybe if there was a ton of money and like bucking colts out 7 days a week, I'd do it. But otherwise, when I started realizing like you're not going to make a lot of money and you're going to just try to get bucked around on horses till they calm down, like this isn't going to work for me. And then, finding this style of horsemanship was like a breath of fresh air. And you see guys even now, like every now and then you'll see a video on Facebook where it's like so-and-so's horsemanship and like their colt blows up and they're just bucking around the arena. And these are guys in their like 30s and 40s. And like, they're really proud of it too. They're like Colt Hammer's first ride, they're out there like, and you're like, dude, like you're not going to be able to do that for very long. That's like, that'd be like if an MMA fighter was like in his 40s and got paid like $300 a match and is out there just like going at it, doing jujitsu and, kicking, standing up, going down, like doing everything and just getting beat up and like, yay, I made $300. And like, no one would think that guy was cool. Like for a little while, but then you'd be like, that's just sad. And I feel that way when I see those videos.
Well, it's cool till you lose.
Yeah.
That's the
problem. Then you see some young kid come, like you'll see like a teenager that's kind of going about it right. And they put a beautiful first ride on a horse and it's like super handy and they're doing great and they're moving right along. And it's like, yeah, I think I'm going to choose that path because like getting bucked around looks really cool. And like that Mongolian guy, he probably knows how to stay out of trouble. But most of us are just going to be ragdolls and you're just going to get beat up for no reason. Yeah. And that was a big reason why I was like trying to figure out how to be a cowboy and wear a hat and not ride a horse. Yes. I didn't want to get beat up and hurt for no reason.
Well, and think about this. Like, what do you think that Mongolian guy's other option is? Go sell insurance. Like he's got to get the horse ridden. Like what are we talking about here?
He could sell like Mongolian rocks or something on eBay. Yeah. Not many other options.
Yeah. So he's probably been doing it since he was like 12 years old.
Yep.
And again, it's just the whole perspective is different because it's not like choosing a profession. It's this is what we do. This is what we've done for the last 1,000 years. And it's how we stay alive is riding these horses. So, but yeah, I totally agree with you, man. There is a guy, he's like the local rep for the Angus Association now. And he's friends with, or he's married to one of my clients, and I was talking with him, and he said, yeah, I used to work out at this ranch in Nebraska, and I learned to ride and rope out there. He said, but the way we started all our horses is Sunday night, the bunkhouse would all get together, have a bunch of beers, and then buck out the 2-year-olds and the 3-year-olds. And we just do that every week until they were gentle enough to start riding them out.
Wow.
So like, I guess that's one approach, is just take a bunch of strong, young 20 somethings, give them a bunch of beer and let them ride your 2-year-olds so the 2-year-olds stop bucking.
Yeah. But like, to your point though, you were just talking about like, is it a way of life that you kind of born into, or is it like your career? That sounds like neither, but that sounds like a bunch of drunk guys that like think that's fun. But like when you're studiously sitting down and looking at pursuing careers, and to the same point, like you look at, MMA or even modern rodeo, like you have some really bright people that sit down and they decide to be a bull rider, and they do it very well. And a lot of people do take, like JB's advice, like if you're going to ride bulls to be the best there ever was. And if you're not doing that, don't do it. And that's like very good advice. And the money's there now more than ever, at least. But like with horses, like, okay, either you're drunk with your buddies, or you were like born doing it and you haven't thought of something else to do, or like you're sitting down and you're thinking about a career. And if you're going to start young colts as a career, like it doesn't pay very well to be like a crappy colt starter that gets bucked around. At least I haven't met one yet, but that, that does kind of break the box. But again, like that's fun for a while. And if you're drunk, it's really fun, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's like Yellowstone, right? They get drunk and go ride the buffalo. Did you see that scene?
Yeah.
So I don't know. In Montana, we'd get drunk and go smash mailboxes, which, I mean, the repercussions could have even been worse than just getting bucked off a horse drunk. So, I mean, you do what you do.
Yeah.
That was really fun. And we probably ought to wrap this up soon, but man, like, so I'd love to hear like sometime, like how wild you guys got in Australia if you did. But to me, like living in Montana where I was and at the age I was, and like going to the bar like 2 nights out of the week, because we worked all the other nights out of the week, or we probably would have been at the bar those nights too. And you just felt like you were in the middle of nowhere. You felt like the law could not reach you. And you felt like, it just felt like there were no repercussions to like screwing around. And man, it was so much fun. I remember at one point, like driving along, and I'm not even going to say it, but you know what I mean? So I'm driving in a state I shouldn't have been driving in. And I'm like thinking about how awesome it is to be living where I was and the way I thought and how I felt about life. And I was like, I hope I never forget this, you know? And I was like,
that's 100% a drunk
wild, right?
At night thought.
Like,
yes.
I can't ever forget this feeling. I feel so powerful. No one's ever going to tell me that, like, I don't know what I'm doing in life and stuff, you know? And now I cannot for the life of me remember really how that felt. But I remember that I was telling myself not to ever forget that feeling. But something about being like out there, like for one, you're out there in that country, and like there is not a lot of law. There's some law. But then on top of that, you're 18, you're drinking and driving with friends and just going way too fast, and feeling like smashing a mailbox is funny and there's no consequence. Like I've heard some people talk about doing that in neighborhoods where they're like, it was fun to be bad because, you know, you felt like you were doing something wrong. Like there could be a consequence. It's dangerous. But like doing that in Montana didn't feel bad or dangerous because you're like, they're not even going to see that mailbox for another week. Like you couldn't get caught for that if you tried. No one was there to catch you. For all they knew, a snowplow hit the thing, you know? So that's what was crazy, is that you were having so much fun and like no one was there to see it and no one cared. And I didn't care. It just felt fun to be doing it. But I could imagine, I don't know how wild you guys got in Australia, but like, I feel like that would be a country where to me, I'd want to step out of the plane or whatever and just be like, all right, let's party. It's just this, like, to me, I feel like it's a big place with not a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's population centers. There's definitely places that are super, super rural. And I got to go to some of them. And it is like Montana or something like that, like rural Montana, where there's one bar. Everyone in like a 30-mile radius drives to it on Friday night. I don't know. The weird thing there was, I guess we have it here too, but like culturally, there were some kind of unspoken laws that I had to figure out a little bit. Like they have a much different view on fighting than we do. It's very much more like bar fights are kind of like a sport over there. and and I didn't realize that um at the time, but yeah, they'll just like two guys will kind of be drinking and like bump into each other and then just absolutely wail on each other for 5-10 minutes, and then they don't even get kicked out of the bar. They like go to the bar and like buy each other a beer. And when that like started happening, it threw me for an absolute loop, because I went like full like adrenaline mode the first time that happened, and then you kind of just get used to it. And but there's definitely some places where you just go out and, like you said, you're like, who could possibly touch us out here? Which is a very dangerous feeling for like a 19-year-old to have. But you're like, who could possibly touch us out here? Because we're like in the middle of nowhere. Usually it's like beautiful. I think Australia is a very beautiful place, but I just like being outside in rural places at night anyway. So, you're like, camping out or sleeping in a horse trailer somewhere, and yeah, you feel like you're on top of the world. And like I said, really the only difference I found was they're way more willing to have a scrap than Americans are, because they don't take it. I don't know. No, I don't think people like sue each other and stuff like that like they do over here now.
Yeah, probably not. They're probably going to pretty soon though.
Could be.
They're probably cooking a lawsuit up or two.
Again, this was pre-COVID, so I don't know what it's like over there now.
Yeah.
But that was kind of wild, because then once I figured that out, everyone did kind of want to see if they could fight the American. You've been, when we go out into like social settings, I feel like I'm pretty talkative, dude. Over there, I got to where I was like almost a mute, because I just didn't want to stand out more than I already did.
You're like one of those gunslingers in a Western where he's like coming into town, like knows that everybody would like to take a shot with him. So
yeah, I mean, not even that. Like, yeah, not even that, but just like I wanted to just enjoy being there. I didn't want to be the foreign guy and only talk about how I'm the foreign guy with everyone all the time. That was cool for a couple weeks, but after you live there a couple months, you're like, I just want to fit in.
Yeah.
Like I would go to the grocery store and see how few words I could say to the cashier. Because if I said more than like 3 words consecutively, they're like, oh, you're not from around here.
Yeah. No, did you ever feel like you started picking up an accent or even tried?
I mean, I definitely tried.
But they'll they get on you for that. Like if you actually try.
No, yeah, they did get on me for that when I just tried to use the vernacular a little too much.
Yeah.
The biggest problem too, like, is the I don't even think I have that much of an accent. It comes out a little bit more when I drink. But the American South, particularly like the Southern Appalachia, the R's are pronounced completely different than how Australians pronounce their R's, because my R's tend to be in the back of my throat, and Australians are really nasally. So as soon as I said any word like farmer, bar, any kind of word like that, they were like, "Oh, he's like not from around here. And I don't think I could ever even learn to say it like they do.
Yeah.
In normal conversation. So, but that's fine. I got over the eventually I got over it, but no, there's just part of it when you go somewhere else. You probably feel that way. If you were like at your first cowboying job, eventually you want to like just be around like the atmosphere and not feel like you're standing out. I just kind of wanted to absorb it all instead of shifting the whole dynamic by being like, oh, he's new here.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just trying to blend in so that you're not the guy who's like, who's that guy? Where did he come from? You'd like to look like you belong in the picture.
Yeah. I didn't, but luckily I had some really good friends over there that kind of babysat me the whole time, to tell you the truth. Made sure I didn't cause too many faux pas.
Well, I tell you what, man, we're going to need to find us a couple of babysitters in Mongolia on our adventure when we head up there. So,
yeah. Oh, we have to go now.
Yeah, we do.
Those ponies are like 12 hands, so that'll be interesting. But we have to go.
Yeah, you might be dragging your boots a little bit on the ground.
Yeah,
let's find a tall one for you.
Yeah, if I bring a saddle, I'll bring my like 15-inch cinch or something like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, let's end this thing. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I think we made a good podcast in the end. Poor Merle.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
get back.
That was a valiant effort.
We'll have guests next week, folks. We're gonna be hopefully have some better luck technologically in the coming days when we record a few more episodes. But
yeah,
some weeks you just get me and Ben, and
yeah,
that's kind of how this whole deal started. So,
and guys, enjoy your turkey. Happy Thanksgiving. I know that in the past I've said happy holidays like the week after the holiday because I always forget when the podcast comes out, but this is coming out in the morning. So definitely a lot to be thankful for. All right. We'll see you, man.
Thanks, everybody.